Hey everyone, and thank you for joining us for another Secret Sunday session today. Today I'm joined by Canna Campbell, and today we're going to be discussing topics concerning Canna's story in her career, as well as the pressures around financial burdens and how money can sometimes play a toll on our mental health, as well as how that can also impact being a parent and also being a young person in today's generation. So I'm not going to talk any further, as this of course is about Canna. And we're going to get a little bit to know about what Canna does. So for those people that are not aware, Canna, who are you and what is it that you do?
So my background is I'm a financial planner, but about I think 8 years ago I launched SugarMamma TV, which is it's basically a financial how-to guide for everyday people. So it's on YouTube, Instagram. There are 2 podcasts. I have published books. So it's basically from anything from like getting out of credit card debt all the way to building up a share portfolio and managing your superannuation and really understanding the mindset as well around being financially free and independent.
I feel like in today's world, that idea of being financially free seems so far away for so many people. Are you finding that people come to you or are sending you messages going, how is this possible?
Yes, all the time. But then they see my content where I show them how to do it. They're like, oh, wow. So I actually end up getting lots of messages saying, oh, since listening to this and that, I've paid off this credit card and I've got this much in savings and I'm getting ready to just start my own share portfolio. So it really starts with a decision to not accept where you are right now today and to then set a goal to improve it. So, it's incredible what you can do when you put your head, heart and mind to it. So if you're not happy with where you stand financially, you can make changes. And quite often it's the tiniest, most simple tweaks to the way that you use money, think about money, and behave around money. It makes a profound difference. It's not rocket science, I promise. And things like, learning how to do a budget, have a separate savings account for particular financial goals, such as saving up for your first home. It's very, very easy once you know what you want and you start to step up and make yourself accountable and find a goal that really excites you.
Do you find that people overcomplicate it? Like at the end of the day, it comes down to just simple steps.
Yes, particularly the media. A lot of people, when they hear like NFTs and crypto and all this stuff, and the media overcomplicates it. It's very, very simple. The principles behind wealth creation. So, and that's what I'm all about, peeling back the layers and just getting down to not wasting your time, but just giving you what you need to know, and don't worry about the rest, because that's what's going to help get you to where you are. And none of the principles that I preach are complicated, and they're not even high risk necessarily. So I'm not promoting a particular financial product or strategy. It's about helping you work out what's right for you, and really about education and empowerment.
We look at the media and they send so many messages that can create a lot of hysteria and a lot of stress concerning money, especially we look post-COVID, and it's always you got to save your money, interest rates and all these things that are changing and putting so much pressure on families. Do you think that, with the hysteria that the media is creating, that there's truth to that, or it's just another selling point?
Look, there's that saying, there's 3 versions of the truth, 2 different sides, and it's somewhere in the middle. Look, the media is very clickbait driven. They love these sensational headlines. It's all about like triggering fear and panic, and then greed sometimes. I think the truth lies somewhere in between, where yes, there are risks out there. It would be unethical of me not to admit that, but at the same time, it is important to take your financial well-being seriously. You can't just bury your head in the sand. You do need to think about, where your superannuation money is invested. You do need to understand how to stick to a budget. You do need to know how to pay off your debts. So, they probably like to overcomplicate things and make things seem a lot more dramatic, which I think creates a fear and freeze mentality where people just don't understand, therefore don't do anything. But it's as I say, it's the simplest things that make a big difference. And it actually becomes really fun when you do your finances, because you're like, oh wow, I managed to pay that credit card debt off. Oh wow, that I saved up for that particular goal a lot faster than I realized I would, and it was actually really fun along the way. There are all these very powerful aha moments, and as you achieve each goal, you realize how powerful you are, and therefore you stretch more the next time. So when it comes to ticking off that goal from your list, you go, well, I saved $5,000. Maybe the next goal is to save $10,000, and you start to really see significant progress. And I always say progress fuels success, because you realize, wow, I'm doing this, it's working. They aren't really sacrifices, because they're sacrifices that are well worth it. And I like this, and I like the feeling of being in control. I like the feeling of achieving. I like the feeling of knowing, I am responsible for all of this, and I'm making a change and doing things differently that serves my higher good, and other people's higher good as well.
And do you think that there is a too young of age to start looking at budgeting and working out your finances?
Absolutely not. It's never ever too early. I have 3 children, and each of them have a share portfolio, and my children range between 1 and turning 10. So my 10-year-old understands a lot more obviously than my 1-year-old, and I'm not trying to jam it down their throats, but it's slowly and steadily. So, and even my son, if we're allowed to buy something, he has to understand, okay, well, we've got X amount of dollars to spend. How do you want to spend it? And is that on sale? Is that good value? Is that well made? Do you have something like that already at home? If you buy that, we won't be able to go to the movies then. So it's never ever too early. It's never too late. So someone who's approaching retirement thinking, oh my goodness, what have I done? I've left it too late. That's not true either. There's a lot of stuff you can do to make up for lost time, but you will make your life substantially easier and less stressful when you start early when it comes to money. And it starts with a budget. It starts with a savings account. Don't try and all of a sudden wake up one day and go, right, I'm going to get into investing, and I'm going to learn about, options and puts and calls and trading and cryptos and, all these exotic investments. Start with the basics. Start with learning how to do a budget and getting the hang of it and understanding where your money goes. Start with some very simple savings goals, build up some emergency money, and then, continue on.
And I think as well, we can't deny that we are a culture where we do like to spend, and sometimes spend beyond our means. And a lot of times we come to justifying it, like going on a holiday or going shopping or buying that new midlife crisis product. Do you feel like we should be being more cautious when we're spending our money when it comes to luxury items, and instead of look at saving and investing?
Yes, I really believe in quality over quantity. So I'm someone who does, and I love beautiful handbags. That's my big weakness. I have a handbag collection, even though I try and incorporate a minimalistic philosophy into my life. And I'm all about quality, not quantity. So if you are going to, take, let's say a Gucci handbag that can be, say, $3,000, that's a lot of money to be buying a handbag. And I'm not going to judge someone for buying it because that's what they want. But I would say, think about it and enjoy the journey of the handbag. So enjoy saving up for it. Enjoy researching and analyzing which one's for you. Enjoy the thought of going to the shops finally and buying it and bringing it home and wearing it. So there's a whole process involved, but also then there's a practical side. So don't just go, oh well, I can afford that handbag, I'll buy it. Like, that's madness. So I would recommend someone looks at the is that a color that's going to work for me in my lifestyle? Is that the right size? Is that a versatile bag? Can I style it and wear it in different ways that could help maximize my outfits without having to own a whole pile of stuff? Is it well made? Will it last the test of time? Is it a high fashion piece that will last a couple of seasons and then look tired and outdated? All these sorts of things really come into play, because I have handbags that are over 10 years old, and I bought them pre-loved, and they've gone up in value. And I love my pieces. So if I'm going to buy something that's expensive and I'm going to hand over my hard-earned money, I want to make sure that I get my maximum return on my investment and my cost per wear and all those important things. So there's nothing wrong with luxury at all. Just treat it like a luxury, like honor that process, respect it, be grateful, but do it mindfully, like, because let's be honest, when you're throwing money at something without that presence, it's not really a luxury luxury experience anymore. It's a mask for something else that's going on.
Mm. And even with that, you talk to some people that can make purchases or buy something, and then there's a guilt attached to that, because then they revisit the budget and they're like, well, I couldn't afford that and now I'm paying off this. Do you feel that, you know, if there is guilt attached to something, that chances are you shouldn't be buying it?
Is that saying, you know, if you can't afford to buy it in cash, don't buy it? And I do agree with that principle. I mean, if you're using credit cards and buy now, pay later for those luxury purchases, I'm not going to say you're not worthy of them. You definitely are, but the timing's not right. And whenever it comes to buying a handbag or a luxury purchase, I have my priorities in check. So, you know, I've achieved my financial goals of investing. I've stuck to my budget. I've saved up for that item in cash. You know, though it's really important, because if I'm buying something like that, I want it to be, as I said, a luxurious experience, and I want to be able to enjoy it guilt-free. Otherwise, I'll feel yucky every time I look at that bag. You know, and each of the bags I've bought, I can tell you the goals that I achieved in my life and what they represent. So when I go to use that bag and pull it out of the cupboard, it reminds me, oh, I did this and I rewarded myself with that. It's like, and it's like a warm fuzzy reminder. I'm like, you know what, I'm doing it. I'm making progress. This is really, and it gives me a sense of pride and also future confidence as well, to keep going with the next things that I'm working on in my life.
And if we shift a little bit to the other side, where a lot of people are living paycheck to paycheck and they really don't have a good relationship with money at the moment, how can money actually play a toll on people's mental health?
Huge. Okay, so I'm very, very open and transparent about my personal mental health challenges, and the money magnifies what's already within us. So if you take someone who's greedy and you give them more money, they become greedier. If you become someone who's very tight with money and you give them money, they become even tighter because they become more protective. So it's really important to invest some time exploring your money story, looking at what you've grown up with, what money represented to you, what you think money is today, with how people use money around you for good and bad, and really peel back the layers as to what you tell yourself about money, because we become what we think about. So for people who are living paycheck to paycheck, it is hard, and I've been there myself from when I was a single mother. So you really need to first of all work on your mindset, because staying in a state of scarcity and fear doesn't serve you. You need to move into a space of solutions and brainstorming and proactive, like mindful action. So thinking, okay, well, all right, I'm living paycheck to paycheck. How do I change that? Well, okay, I need to go back to my budget. Okay, well, I need to set up some emergency savings so that I never get stuck in like running out of money and have to get into credit card debt. I need to start thinking about some other financial goals. Maybe I need to look at my superannuation to make sure that that's invested. You need to step out of the money story if it's holding you back, and recreate your new money story, so that you can really think about, where do you see yourself if you want to make a change. And it might be only small little simple steps initially, and that's fine, because they're steps in the right direction, and those steps build momentum and get bigger and bolder each time you have another aha moment. So, you know, look at the budget, look at the savings, look at the separate accounts, look at ways to save money in your existing budget, look at ways to earn extra money. I'm like, whilst I'm a financial planner, I'm not someone who's technically frugal as such, even though I have frugal February challenges. I'm very much about, we live in a limitless world. It was filled with abundance and prosperity. So when I look at the goals I want to achieve, which I don't have the money for, which is most of my goals, I look at, well, like, how am I going to create this money? And I'll go out and hustle, and I'll have I'll take up extra jobs. I'm actually literally just this weekend about to email someone about me doing some extra freelancing work for them. You know, I put myself out there. I brainstorm as many ideas as possible, and then I can use that money to rebuild my emergency savings, to put towards my mortgage or the $1,000 project. So it takes with the moment you want to just step up and say, I'm not accepting where I am right now. I'm going to be doing things differently. And just because you're on the breadline, you are living paycheck to paycheck, there's no reason to stay where you are. In fact, it's a reason to step out of that and live the life you're worthy of living.
That's absolutely amazing advice, and even I can take some of that definitely and recognize my money story in that. But I think as well, a lot of families and a lot of single mums can relate to where you were. As you said, you were a single parent. How did you find, and what were you feeling in those moments? Did you feel stuck? How did you get out of that?
Oh, it was terrifying. So to get out of my marriage, I basically had to pay. And I had to take on a huge amount of debt to do so, and that was because I wanted to make sure that my son and I remained in the family home, which I had predominantly paid for. And I'll never forget, my ex-husband said to me, "You're going to drown. You've had to take on all this debt. You won't survive." And he was laughing in my face. And it's like, you can't even take the bins out at night. And it was horrible. Like, my world was spinning. I was in a very, very fragile mental space, and I was terrified. And it was never ever about him and wanting to prove him wrong, because that's just stupid and soulless. But I looked at what I could do, and I looked at, okay, well, you know, I can take on extra work. I can review my budget. I can look to cut this. I can look to cut that. I can work more efficiently. I can, when my son's at daycare, I can do this, this, and that, and learn to. And when I need help, instead of calling a babysitter, maybe I could swap. You know, take her kids for a couple of hours, and she takes my kids for a couple of hours, instead of us both having to pay babysitters. I really got creative, and you know, step by step, it was slow. But I was getting there. I was making the mortgage repayment, so every now and again I could make an extra repayment to help bring it down. I have never looked back. And as I said, it's got nothing. You never want to use somebody else as a reason to, you know, to prove them or you wrong. You don't need that. But it was one of those defining moments where I was like, there is no way in hell I'm letting that happen. That's just rubbish, you know. And yeah, and we both, you know, things are very, very different now. And I'm glad I didn't just stay stuck in that fear and fright, because I'd still be stuck there today.
And you look at that, a lot of people unfortunately do get stuck in that fear, and they either don't know how to get out, or they know how to get out and they can't see themselves doing the work. And you even look at that, and you must have worked so hard and set so many goals to really accomplish that. So congratulations on that. But also, what kept you going? I know a lot of parents are probably like the kids keep you going, keep you motivated. But at the same time, how did you find time to actually look after you, because you were going through such a hard time?
I think my friends were really, really, really powerful in keeping me propped up and keeping me supported, and mentally and emotionally. My son Rocco, definitely. For me, all I cared about was Rocco. All I cared about was keeping him happy, keeping him healthy, keeping him strong, and being a good role model. And you know, I have no problem crying in front of my children and saying I'm tired, I'm grumpy, I'm frustrated. Like I don't try and be this like martyr, or like they see the warts and all with me. I'm human, and I say I'm not a good mom, but I'm trying my best, guys. Sorry for the dogs barking in the background. But it's, you know, to anytime I got a little break, I would just try and give myself a pat on the back, and just and try and hold on to those moments, those little wins, whether it might be getting through my budget on, you know, without using a credit card, or maybe it was saving up some money, you know, to make an extra $100 on the mortgage that month. Those little tiny wins, you know, would give me the motivation and inspiration to keep going. And seeing my son happy, and just realizing I'm doing it. I'm standing on my own 2 feet. You know, I've got I might be very wobbly and shaky inside, but I'm doing it. And there were definitely tough days and frightening days and stressful days, and but I just kept going. There wasn't an option to, it wasn't sink or swim. The only option was to swim, and swim as hard as I possibly could. And I knew that it would get easier with time. And I focused on the value that I could add in my work. And I think when you really take that mindset where you look at not, you look at the value, because that's inherently anchored to your, I think, earning capability. When you think you step out of this, I deserve this, I'm entitled to that, and you go, well, how can I be of value to people, and how can I be valuable in a scalable way? So really sink yourself deeper into your work, where you go, okay, well, how can I be the best employee at my company? How can I be a great team leader and be considered for the next promotion? Start thinking like that. It does create shifts and breakthroughs, I believe.
Yeah, it is. I feel like it is a lot about the mindset and where your head's at. And if you really have that belief and follow through, you can really see change in your life. And I think you're evidence of that. So that's amazing. Absolutely. Congratulations, as I said, on that and being where you are today. And I'm sure your kids are very grateful and happy that you've progressed to where you are today.
Yeah. My son loves to go through my phone and look at old photos of when it was just him and I, and even he looks back and go, wow.
Yeah, and it goes to show, like, everyone has a story and everyone has a place of adversity and what they've overcome, and even what you're doing today and how you're helping so many people even with their own financial burdens is incredible, knowing the story that you've come from. So amazing, great work.
Oh, thank you.
On that, we look at finances and we look at the world of people working for themselves and people working independently. There is also a lot of stress around that for people to, invest. Do you think that it is something that people should be considering, where the mindset of making money while you sleep seems to be getting this big booming attention?
Absolutely. It is, as I said, it's never too early, it's never too late. Most definitely the early is just the magic of compounding interest. The sooner the better. And you obviously need to look at educating yourself before you make any decisions, because there are a lot of get-rich schemes out there. You need to work out what's the right amount of risk you're comfortable taking on board, what's the time frame, and also how does that fit in with all your other goals? Because if someone's got a goal to buy their first home, they want to get into investing, building up a share portfolio knowing that they're going to buy a home in the next couple of years is not a great idea, potentially, because of the risk involved and the volatility. So that's why, educate yourself before you launch. And there's so many great tools out there to help you get started. And for people who think, oh, I really want to invest, but I'm saving up for my first home, what I would say to them is go look at your superannuation, because that's your investment portfolio. It's just locked away by the government because they know you'll spend it. So treat that like your investment portfolio, because it is.
Yeah, and I think it's this scary concept when you say risk, because there's a lot of us that are willing, yes, to just spend our money and to throw it away on things that they know they can get a return on. But that risk of, say, for example, investing, a lot of people are uncertain and uneducated on it. And it can be quite confusing. I know, even for myself, my early 20s, and looking at the whole investment scheme, I'm like, I don't understand anything. And there is so much information out there with social media, online content, the internet. How do we filter through that information and know what is truth and what is people just basically talking bullshit?
Yeah. So look, I'm a qualified financial planner. So if you're going to be following people on social media and looking online, I would be starting with people who actually qualified. That's really important, because there are a lot of financial influencers out there, and while they might be explaining something correctly, they're not explaining the risks involved or the timeframes of those investments. So I would stick to people who actually are qualified financial planners or stockbrokers. Obviously, and they all have these general advice warnings, so that even though they might be talking about, for example, a managed fund or a listed investment company or an ETF, that's not personal advice, that's general advice. So, the way you interpret it is very, very important, that you understand what you're looking at. So yeah, you've just got to be very, very careful, and everything doesn't sit right in your gut and you think, oh, hang on, that doesn't make sense. And it doesn't, like, beyond the educational component, of course, then don't follow it. Like, I think people are a lot more intuitive than they realize when it comes to these types of schemes. And do your research. It's so easy to review people and services and products online, so be very, very careful. If it seems too good to be true, it probably is.
Yeah. How did you navigate your way through it? Obviously, coming from a single mom perspective and then entering that financial environment. How did you find your way and know what was right for you and what wasn't?
Well, I've been a financial planner since I was in my early 20s. So I had that background to me. But for anyone that's thinking, well, I'm not a financial planner, but I want to invest, it's very, very easy to find research. So assuming someone, there's multiple books out there. There are great people to follow online that have really good, wise, sensible, comprehensive advice and education. There's podcasts. There's a whole range of free material for anyone to access to start their journey today. And it really, like, I've coached so many of my clients through some really tough, frightening times. So it is possible, but it really comes down to education first and just starting with the basics.
And I think money as well, it is such a hype at the moment, whether it is fear-based or it is people wanting to invest or it's people saving or it's people in debt. It always seems to be this massive topic that we need to figure out and we need to sort out in our lives. Do you think that in this environment that we're in, that people should be, I know you did mention changing your mindset around money so that you can have a better relationship with it, but should we be thinking about it every day and revisiting it every day and looking at our budget every day?
It really boils down to personal preference. I don't think you necessarily need to look at your budget every day, but I do think you should check your accounts at least every couple of days. But if you have big goals that you want to work on and you're passionate, you're determined, and you find yourself looking at your accounts and goals every day, then keep it going, because you're more likely to succeed. It's more likely to happen a lot sooner and a lot easier for you. So I really think that looking that what gets monitored gets made. It's like someone going on a diet to lose weight, but they're not tracking their calories or their steps. Like, it's going to be a lot harder to see results, or it's going to take a lot longer. So yeah, if you can, ideally look at do a budget and then regularly check it. Write down your goals, put deadlines to those goals, give them detail. Don't give yourself too many goals, because then obviously it's like juggling lots of balls in the air. It'll be harder and you're more likely to drop all of them. So keep it simple, but keep it direct. And that deadline of not in 3 months' time, it needs to be by, I say with my goals, 1st of December 2023. And I've intentionally done that because as we get towards the end of the year, our energy levels are starting to plateau, or we've just crashed and burned. So by knowing that our deadline is sooner, we're crystallizing that time we've got more energy and passion and focus to make the most. And then we can wrap the end of the year up when we've run out of energy anyway. You're not like staggering to the finish line.
Do you think there's ever a point where you can become too obsessed with your money?
Yeah, I see this quite a bit. People who try and budget to the nearest dollar, and it's very fear-based, and they're out of alignment with the flow of money. It becomes very much a control and a fear-based approach, and it actually repels money because it doesn't account for life and unexpected things that happen. So you'll get people who literally budget to the dollar, and then they're angry and frustrated because their budget blew out because something out of the blue happened. And that's why I always take the approach with a budget is it's actually a boundary, not a budget. And for example, I give myself X dollars to spend on clothes per month, rather than saying I can't spend more than this. And it gives me that freedom and flexibility to go, okay, well, I'm not going to buy a $50 t-shirt this month. I can roll that forward to the next month. If I want, I can buy $100 or 2 t-shirts. It gives me that flexibility. And even like with groceries, there are going to be weeks where our grocery budget is lower because things are on special, or we happen to have picked more frugal meals, or we're eating up the bits that we've already got at home. then the next week might be more expensive because we want a certain meal that's where the fruit and vegetables are out of season. So, money are like the waves. We can't control and dictate how it moves. We just have to build a great net that can safely move through the ocean with those waves. And that's what a budget is.
That's amazing. I love that perspective. And then we look at the concepts that you are sharing as well today, which are amazing. The things like Frugal February, as well as you've also got the $1,000 project. Talk us a little bit about those concepts. What are they and why did you start them?
I just pulled the pin on Frugal February today. So Frugal February is an annual financial challenge I do for fun. And it's about basically going on a financial fast for the 28 days. And it's every time you stop yourself spending money, you transfer it to a separate savings account. And then you also go through your budget and look at ways you can save money. So that might be like cutting subscriptions, that might be pausing your gym membership for the month, that might be switching products, that might be calling up your gas and electricity provider and seeing if there's better plans, calling Foxtel and changing the amount of channels that you've got, anything and everything. But it's got to match your value system. So I'd never recommend someone cancel their insurance or, you've got to use common sense here as well. And every time you do that, you transfer that money. And I got to $1,076 to be precise. And plus I got some extra money in my family savings account as well, which is great. So it's just about kind of taking back control and also exposing any of those toxic financial habits that just hold us back. And for me, that's buying banana bread and muffins and cupcakes and stuff like that.
Yeah, little treat.
Exactly. And then $1,000 project is actually how I built a $242,000 or $3,000 share portfolio.
Wow.
Yeah. I literally built it $1,000 at a time. It does have a small margin loan attached to it. But what I did was I just basically hustled. I saved and hustled. And none of that money came from my salary or my savings. But, I worked weekends. I cut my things out of my budget. I rented my house out on Airbnb. I decluttered my home. I did all these weird and wonderful things to bring in extra money into my life. And every time I did that, I put into a separate savings account. The moment it hit $1,000, I'd go and invest it. And I bought very boring blue chip industrial shares. And through ETFs and listed investment companies, I reinvested the dividends. I never spent them. And then, portfolio got bigger and bigger. And then I borrowed a little bit of money, very conservatively managed, to help, obviously leverage my portfolio and increase the opportunities. And yeah, it's still going today. On Monday, I'll be investing another $1,000 from Frugal February, and it's quite incredible. And I actually work out the exact amount of money I've earned, and then I donate the equivalent to World Vision.
Amazing. Oh, incredible. That's awesome to start that from an idea and then to see as well people that are following you and supporting you are now following these challenges and succeeding through them. That must be incredible to see that you started this for yourself and now that you're able to impact many other people's lives.
I'm really proud of it. The really cool thing about the $1,000 project, which I'm most proud of, is it evolves with you. So you create your own rules. And I chose this to build a share portfolio of long-term growing passive income, and which was particularly important because I was a single mother. And even though I'm not a single mother anymore, it's probably it is just as important, because financial independence is what it is, whether you're single or not. But the thing I love about it is you don't have to use it for this. I've had people use the $1,000 project for reconstructive surgery. I've had people use the $1,000 project for IVF. I've had people use the $1,000 project to buy their first home. I've had people do the $1,000 project to pay off their first home, get out of HECS debt, get out of credit card debt. It's a best-selling book. So, people who are interested in doing this for themselves, please do it. Grab a copy of the book. It will tell you exactly the steps to follow and how to think outside of the square and how to use this. And so people will use it, for getting out of debt, and then they'll use it to build up savings, and then they'll use it to save up for their first home or build their first share portfolio. So it evolves with them over time, depending on what is important to them at the time.
Incredible. And it starts with that step-by-step process that you lay out so amazingly. So congratulations on that, and having everyone follow you with that. Now, this has been an absolutely phenomenal conversation, hearing about obviously your story and where you started to where you are now, as well as the impact that you are creating and how money can sometimes be that burden. And of course, as we discussed, it is such a hype at the moment in all different categories. Where can people find you, and tell us a little bit about SugarMamma TV and how people can click on that and view some of the things that you do post?
Of course. So look, Instagram is probably the fastest and easiest place to get a hold of me, because if you DM me, you'll get me that DMs back, not someone who works for me. And then obviously YouTube, I think there's 127,000 followers, subscribers on that YouTube channel. So I create videos and put them up, and that also includes lifestyle elements, not just the money and the finances, but also things like juggling 3 children while working for myself, health and well-being, mental health, the spirituality side of money. So there's a whole range of other things included on that. And then I've got 2 podcasts, SugarMamma's Fire Play, and then I have How Do You Afford That, which is co-hosted with Michael Thompson from Fear and Greed, and that just got picked up as number 2 in the world on educational podcasts.
Wow, congratulations.
It is quite freaky, how that happened.
Yeah, did you ever imagine that you would be in the position you are today?
It was quite funny because I did this Gabby Bernstein program at the beginning of the year, which you may have come across, the 21 day. And I had on my vision board to do that. See, I kind of surrendered to it. So I was like, okay, I'm doing this podcast with Michael Thompson. I'm loving it. We're having so much fun doing this. I have no idea where it's going to go, because I'm a collaborator on that business, but I'm also in business with 3 other men. And so it's not like my podcast Fireplay is purely mine. So it's me dictating and concocting the dreams and the goals. Whereas with them, I'm kind of like, I'm in a square box, and I'm 1/4 of the square box. So I kind of was like, oh, whatever, no idea. That they're driving it with my permission and collaboratively, but also, and they're the guns, like they're the biggest podcasters in Australia. So that happened. And it was funny, I looked at my vision board, and there I had this picture of Michael and I in the studio with our big signs behind us. And Michael's the one that messaged me. He's like, I got off a plane, opened up my phone, he's like, you wouldn't believe this, but look where we are on the charts. And it was Mel Robbins, us, and Jordan Peterson. We beat Jordan Peterson. For me, they're people I listen to like religiously. So yeah.
And to even know that that's the impact, and that's how many people that you were reaching with messages that you've learn't over time and that you've learnt through your own story, that is incredible.
I know, it was like I had to keep on checking it, because I was like, is this a joke? Because he's like Photoshop this together, but no, he hadn't. And it was amazing.
I think as well, to even know that there is such a need for that, and such a need for that in this world that we're living in at the moment, and to know that you're one of the voices that is really leading people in this space. I mean, how does that make you feel?
It's a huge honor, and it's not something I take lightly. And I just am passionate about helping people and helping people find their feet. I'm not giving personal advice. It's all educationally based, but if I can help someone understand their budget, or if I can help someone understand their money story and how to improve their money story, I'm happy. If I can help someone pay for buy their first home, I'm happy. Like, as long as I'm helping someone and helping them find their path and keep going on their path and realizing how powerful they are in building other paths, then I'm like, it's an honor, and I'm incredibly grateful.
Now, I want to end with this. Now, I know that you give so much to your community and the people that follow you, but I think it is really important to sort of look back on yourself and your own journey and your own family. And I kind of want to ask that out of all of this, you do have your beautiful kids, and what type of mother do you want to be for them?
Oh gosh, wow. Cool. I'd love to say a fun mom, but like I do yell at my children. I want my kids. It's really important for me for my kids to know how much I love them and how much I love them unconditionally. That is really important, and I want them growing up knowing that their mum was always there for them, like no matter what, and they were never scared to tell me that, you know, they had confidence in me and their relationship, and knowing that I would listen, not judge, and always be there to help. That's really important, and that unconditional love is incredibly important, because obviously, you know, our parenting, we're dramatically impacting our children every day, and I'm very aware of that, and, you know, cautious and paranoid at the same time.
Yeah, and that's, I feel like, really hard within itself, the idea of feeling like you always have to get it right as a parent, and always
I get it wrong all the time. Oh my God, a complete disaster, but I'll own it and say, like, I stuffed up. I'm really sorry I yelled at you. I'm really tired and frustrated. Like, and I'll explain. And, you know, my son's really good because he's older. So he's like, it's fine, it's okay. And we'll talk about it. But, you know, I hope that then helps him when he's in a relationship, you know, or even professionally, or with his own children in due course, like if that's what he chooses. He knows that, like, we're all human and we're all trying to do our best.
Yeah, and it seems like you wear so many different hats, and there's that big professional hat that you wear, but it sometimes it does break down when you do become a mum, or you do have to start looking after yourself, and you find that hard as well, that you've got to be different people.
I find it really hard to be honest. And I really, you know, I can put a lot of pressure on myself, and you know, I think with motherhood, you know, I technically work 3 days a week, but I don't. I squeeze as much work as I possibly can into those 3 days, but then I work very early in the morning and very late at night and on the weekends, like, you know, like kind of like right now. So it's there, you can get into a vicious trap of the negative self-talk, or just being way too hard on yourself. And it's something I'm slowly getting better, where I can learn to go, you know what, that's enough for today. You know, I can put my pen down and switch off the computer and step back, and, you know, but it is something I personally struggle with a lot, but I'm always trying to work on it and be aware of it.
And I think that's key as well, as always trying to work on it and be aware. And I think so many people out there are in the same boat, where it's, especially if they're a mum or a parent, and trying, as we said, to wear all those different hats, and say the right things and not do the wrong things, and make sure that you're bringing up your kids right, especially in the world we're living in today, where people are so vocal about what is right and what is wrong, and you're parenting good and you're parenting bad, and that's where it can be so stressful for people to just, sometimes they just need a second just to breathe.
I know the pressure is exhausting, and it can be relentless. And I think, like, for me, just stepping back, going, I'm doing my best. I might be failing, but I'm failing while doing my best, and trying to be as human as possible, and having that compassion for myself, but also teaching compassion towards other people as well.
Yeah, incredible. And I feel that's all you can do. And so thank you so much for sharing your story and giving that advice today. It has been absolutely phenomenal to start that conversation with you. As we said, everyone, you can check Canna out online, YouTube channel, Instagram if you want to direct Canna directly. But once again, thank you, Canna, for joining us. And as well, thank you everyone else out there for tuning in on another Secret Sunday session. It has been an absolute pleasure to have you in my company today, especially on the weekend. I appreciate it greatly.
All right, have a fantastic week, and thank you so much for this opportunity to obviously chat with you and connect with everyone else as well. Thank you.
Thank you, and everyone have a great Sunday.